This world often doesn't make much sense to us experiencing it. We who must experience the many tragedies, horrors, and systems of oppression and destruction. It seems as if the world is broken and evil and flawed. Even to those with the wisdom to understand life deeper, it often feels as if existence has a fundamental wrongness contained within it. Logic that leads to regression and decay, incentives that lead to the oppression of greed, and a deception that leads to hate, lies, and destruction. Yet for all this, every person alive has had the best days of their lives. They've cried over the beauty of a lover or a vista or a song. They've danced, partied, and sung. They've enjoyed wonderful stories contained in such a plethora of mediums. They've seen the beauty in small and large moments. And I firmly believe everyone in this world, regardless of their person, has felt that cozy feeling deep inside their heart that everything could be okay. Such is this world a mixture of good and evil, perfection and regression. The intricacies of both the inner workings of living beings and the mathematics of the turning of the heavens are counterbalanced by the destruction and non-functioning so inherent to existence. As such, the world is an anathema to the wise and the foolish alike. Paradoxical in a sense, an oxymoron to many. As we humans have arisen in the middle of the universe's evolution with the intellect to understand things, we have begun to seek to explain this anathema to ourselves and others. In these days, many proclaim that the universe is cold, unfeeling, and purposeless, and that it is we who place the ideas of good and evil onto this existence. We may track on our minds the emergent properties from scientific principles that lead to the many evils we see, but we are only creating this morality in our minds, according to them. We, somehow, as living beings, are not a part of the universe, but an accident outside of the meaninglessness of reality. In stark contrast, those of a much older tradition proclaim that there is a creator of existence, unlimited in its power, who chooses to let this flawed nature of reality exist, because we are fundamentally sinful in our hearts, just like the world it created. They proclaim this creator will judge those that do not worship it, and that the world will be destroyed only to be remade for the faithful. These are the answers that exist in our present day, at least in the English-speaking world. Yet they are not satisfactory to many who seek to understand and explain things. Many accept one of these two as fact and name, yet in their hearts feel differently. They stuff themselves into these worldviews, and often feel unsatisfied by the philosophies and ways of thinking of their time. They then seek to modify and rectify these ideas, in open or in secret, to themselves or others, to little effect. Yet, of the many explanations forgotten to time, there is one which may feel so radically different, yet so deeply familiar. So alien in thought, yet so intuitive in logic. This is the philosophy of the Zoroastrians, who proclaim that the universe is progressing or evolving towards perfection, and it is we humans who are responsible to aid in this progression, by which the world would be reborn. To start with some basic context, Zoroastrianism is an ancient monotheistic religion which dates back to roughly 1700 BC with the teachings of Zarathustra Spitama, often called Zoroaster in the West. We are lucky to have his direct words, as he composed a set of 17 intellectual poems called the Gathas, which survive intact. This video is largely based on the philosophy set down in these Gathas, but I do pull on some ideas expressed in later works as well. While I have covered this philosophy in more depth in my other videos, today we'll be focusing on the final end in Zoroastrianism. This idea has multiple names, and is explored through multiple different concepts and metaphors. But today it is remembered mostly by one, Frashokereti, the Great Renovation, when existence will be made new. Zoroastrianism is in many ways a forgotten religion to most, except those who happen to be educated on it to some extent. It was the largest and central religion of the Persian or Iranian Empire, which stretched over multiple dynasties between 609 BC and 651 AD. During this time, Zoroastrians spread their ideas to multiple different societies and cultures, and heavily influenced the undercurrent of philosophical thought in the world. In its heyday, it was one of the largest religions in the world, and its followers conducted much science and literature. Yet, as the star of the Persian Empire faded, it was conquered by the invading Muslims, who put Zoroastrians to the sword, and, over the centuries, nearly brought it to extinction. But it never died, and today it still exists among the few survivors who now seek to pick up the pieces and to spread their philosophy and religion to those desiring wisdom. This mixture of good and evil which I have described, this uncertainty about what is true, is inherent to the very nature of reality and Zoroastrian philosophy. If I were to endeavor to describe that great renovation, Frashokereti, at this moment to you, I could. But what would that mean without understanding what would lead to it, and why it would happen in that way to begin? It is true that to understand the end, one must understand the beginning, but to truly understand the end, one must understand the true threads running throughout reality, beginning, middle, and end. The truth ultimately is that both good and evil, benefit and bane, are fundamental to this current existence, embedded as deep as it goes. They cannot be explained away or dismissed, but neither can they be conclusively known. One of the great revelations of Zoroastrianism is that the universe, along with the nature of right and wrong, is not certain to those existing. The very way that reality is understood by humans is never ultimate in its view, and is often open to deception. We all inherently use our minds and intellects to understand reality, to understand what we should or shouldn't do in our lives. By the use of these faculties, we craft for ourselves ways of thinking that we pass down to our children, much like similar ones were passed down to us. I say that like it is intentional in our minds, but it often isn't to many except the most self-reflective. Yet all, intentionally or unintentionally, exist in this world. And as I am sure everyone listening to this video knows, it is exceedingly difficult to know what is truly right or wrong, good or bad, and everything exists on a spectrum. This uncertain nature leads many people into doing wrong as they lack the wisdom to understand reality fully, creating legacies of hate, violence, and selfishness. These, by the consequence of their existence, lead to ingrained, internal ways of thinking that create inheritances of dysfunction, trauma, and oppression. However, many would correctly point out that it is not just by the actions of man that we have inherited legacies of wrong, but that the very nature of reality is often harmful or outright destructive. Disease has slaughtered more humans than even humans have, and many wars have been fought over resources. It is this fact that is the true complexity of the nature of evil. Human actions and natural occurrences of some form are overlapped upon each other, dictated by a substrate of wrong inherent to the fundamental workings of existence. In all these ways and others, existence is flawed. Yet, by those very mechanisms I just detailed, good exists, both in reality and in human legacies and systems. As we have broadened our understanding of reality, we have begun to eradicate disease, starvation, and legacies of mental illness. Through our efforts of understanding, many wise and noble people have sought the truth, endeavoring to understand the workings of the world, in small ways and in large. More or less effectively, they have sought to make the world a better place, to actualize the good they saw in their minds. By doing so, we have seen the world transform. We have nearly eradicated all but the most pernicious of diseases, ensuring the vast majority of humans had the potential to live a long, healthy life. We have raised the level of human well-being and knowledge, The very fact that such a large amount of humans can read and write in their language naturally, a skill which was reserved to a small elite in the past, is a monumental accomplishment we take for granted today. All these things were born out of ways of thinking which were passed down, generation after generation, slowly improving and benefiting the world, which, both intentionally and unintentionally, have made the world a more beautiful and wonderful place for humans to live. Yet, despite the many good things we have done, our current understanding takes us only so far, and it seems that in many ways, we have but the technical ability to fix the recurring problems we face. We fail to understand what it is we must do to fix our world and eradicate the evils we see. This is in no small part because we fail to truly understand what those evils are and how reality actually operates. And as such, our lack of understanding will be passed on. And in this current day, I find no convincing arguments to the fundamental problems of our time. Only flawed understandings, however more advanced than previous ones, that will continue to be passed down. But in spite of our misunderstandings and flaws, the world itself can often be a wonderful place. Even if we must live in societies with flaws that seem fundamental, the sun still graces us with its presence every morning, and the moon every night. Their beauty abounds by their very presence, amplified by the nature surrounding them. The forests, the meadows, the mountains, the seas, and even the deserts are by no mistake beautiful. When grief, greed, and fear have been lifted from the soul, it is only by ignorance that one can ignore that existence is in many ways wondrous, and in many ways perfect. This can be seen when looking at the structures of both cells and that of galaxies, when looking at plants and at mountains, animal life and masterpieces of architecture or art. It can be very hard to deny the intrinsic goodness in reality, in nature and in man. Yet we rarely think on these things, and the flaws inherent to reality often turn our mind to darker things. Things that cause us to exploit and destroy that very beauty we ought to partake of. This all was the understanding Zarathustra came to nearly 4,000 years ago. Looking at the world, the violence and wrong as inherent to reality as a good and wonderful, he knew the answers of his day were insufficient. He realized that only by the search for truth could one ultimately know what was good and evil, and that the application of this truth within the mind was a means by which humanity brought good into the world. However, it was by the decrees and proscriptions of the religious and ruling elite of his time, following systems of misunderstanding and wrong, that evil was promulgated under the authority of the gods, creating a society that was an antithesis to the intrinsically wonderful world he saw around him. So he taught those that would listen to use their good minds to understand the true workings of reality, discern right from wrong, and actualize that which is truly good. It is by this understanding that Zarathustra first saw the world, first had a deeper glimpse of its true nature. Yet this isn't the core of reality itself, only the catalyst by which those hungry for wisdom begin to search deeper. In our search for truth, almost all come to the conclusion that there must be a fundamental ordering of reality, that there must be a set of ultimate principles that dictate how things operate. What these exactly are isn't certain, and must be sought after. Yet they must exist for reality to really make sense. This is the very conclusion our modern scientific world has come to, which has, for the past few centuries, endeavored to detail this at every level. By doing so, we have created wonders of science and technology, of architecture and medicine. The world has been advanced and understood more concretely. What was once myth and legend was discarded for the trends of history and prehistory. And we have begun to create a society built on the uplifting of the living, however limited. This has all, on different levels, come from our understanding of these laws dictating our reality. Yet, in this process, many have proclaimed that all there is of the world is the finer details of this fundamental order, saying that everything is ultimately just electrical impulses and chemical reactions. As defensible of a position that is to hold, it is only just a single position. If that were indeed the case, what would then be the purpose of that fundamental order? These laws of physics, so to say. What then would be the purpose of the very reality that has emerged out of these principles? Regardless, in this uncertain world of right and wrong, it is this very fundamental order that perhaps may be the only explanation, elusive yet its nature. If it is truly so, how then are we to understand the nature of evil? Why is it that wrong seems as intrinsic as the good? If it is truly so, how then are we to understand the nature of evil? Why is it that wrong seems as intrinsic as the good? Is it that the very order of existence contains wrong, imperfection inherent within it? Why then would it seem so perfect at the smallest scales, yet progressively worse or flawed at larger ones, such as our own? Is it that the very laws of physics are agnostic to good and evil? Why then would good and bad seem to be so inherent to the workings of reality, and so emergent from them? Why then would the wise not deny their existence? Why then must we otherwise deny our own instinctual ideas of right and wrong to accept that? Perhaps it is that the very order of existence, those fundamental laws, are totally perfect and true, wholly good, yet not fully realized throughout existence, and that it is by their absence, the absence of truth in a way, that wrong exists. As odd of an idea it may be, I feel it makes sense upon reflection. When we seek to create a machine that flies, we seek to best understand the physics of flight, and make those true materially. Yet it is not perfect upon creation, and it takes many iterations before we truly understand what would make a near-perfect flying machine. Ultimately, the workings of the best flying machine are embedded in the laws of physics, which we just actualize to our effect. This too is true for any human endeavor, and, in a similar sense, for all of reality in general. In this way, existence is to be understood as an uneven and incomplete manifestation of the laws of physics. And following this logic, perhaps the nature of evil is simply the absence of perfection. In this way, existence is to be understood as an uneven and incomplete manifestation of the laws of physics. In following this logic, perhaps the nature of evil is simply the absence of this perfection. I know this last point may seem a bit odd, but it is critical for understanding Zoroastrian philosophy and the teachings of Zarathustra. This idea is a very core of the religion. These concepts of ultimate truth and the laws of the universe are combined together into a single term called Asha, the truth, the order of existence. The core assumption of Zoroastrianism, as it were, is that this order is perfect, the ultimate good. It is this Asha which we are to turn to know good from evil. Good is this order of existence realized to some extent, while wrong is that which works against it. When we look at this world, we see the very beauty of truth realized amongst the trees, the birds, the smiles of friendly faces, and more abstractly, the perfection of the minute functioning of the human body. Yet of course there is still wrong, disease, abuse, violence, and disasters. How could these exist if the order of existence were perfect? How could right and wrong not fundamentally exist in tandem? Perhaps this is because truth has not been fully actualized throughout existence. This current reality is in fact the materialization of the order of existence, as it were, a process which is nowhere near completed. Existence, and all within it, could then be understood as a progression or expansion towards perfection, to say things simply. Such is the core realization that many are afraid of acknowledging. That the world is fundamentally good, yet evil still exists. That there is an ultimate truth and order, yet wrong continues to exist in opposition to it. Yet, when one learns to accept this, as hard as that may be, the world begins to make sense, and the moral grayness and ambiguity is seen for what it is, the currently imperfect nature of existence. As such, the importance of wisdom is ever more clear. If we are truly condemned to a morally objective reality which can never be concretely understood by us, it is only by the search for truth and wisdom that we can make sense of it. We can parse through the rights and wrongs of a situation to comprehend the ultimate good, and as such, come to an understanding, as flawed as it may be, of what's good and true. It is this exact understanding that Zarathustra came to when he endeavored to understand this world. Whether by some divine realization or philosophical pondering, he came to firmly believe that there was a single creator of everything, who, foremost, was the creator of Asha, that order of existence. He referred to this creator as Ahura Mazda, meaning Lord Wisdom. He likely chose this name as the very creator, the designer of truth, would ultimately embody the idea of wisdom before anything else. And for us who must live within this existence, endeavoring to bring it closer to truth, wisdom is the ultimate trait by which we could understand this truth best, therefore emulating the very creator of existence. Yet many in these days would ask why Ahura Mazda does not eradicate evil personally, or, by his might, establish the perfect existence, evidently equating him equally with the Abrahamic God. But Ahura Mazda is not an all-powerful personality in direct control of the universe, but instead that supreme intellect by which reality was first given birth, the force by which the beauty and wonder of reality were first breathed to life, and the authority by which the world would be made best, over time. Many indeed struggle not to equate the two, so a proper explanation is required, I feel. It is said, in the beginning, that Ahura Mazda, in its wisdom, first envisioned the perfect reality, the perfect existence. This vision was of ultimate wholeness, eternal long-lastingness, and near infinite diversity and complexity. This was an existence of beauty and radiant happiness, excitement and wonder. All life would live in perfect harmony. Ahura Mazda firstly endeavored to design the laws that would order this existence. By these laws would the act of creation unfold into the best existence. The idea was that Asha, the laws of existence, would, upon being materialized, create the best existence. However, on the act of materialization, reality was not fully ordered by these laws, and within the actual existence, there existed the potential for truth to not be fully realized. Thus, reality was in some way infested with the opposite or opposition to these laws. This is referred to as Duruj, the lie or the deception. As such was born the first existence, the one in which we live. And so reality became a conflict between the order of existence and the lie. Yet, it was not by these two fundamental principles that existence was created specifically, but it was instead by the option or potential to actualize one or the other. These two potentials became forces within reality, in a sense, and were the mechanisms by which reality has progressed to its current state. They were referred to as Spenta Mainyu and Angra Mainyu, the progressive force and the destructive force. Since the act of creation, when truth was not wholly manifested, these two forces have been in everlasting conflict, metaphorically speaking. Not by weapons and armies, but by creation and regression, progression and destruction. While the progressive force is a progressive actualization of the order of existence, the destructive force, by its very regression of the progressive force, is the actualization of the lie, deluge. This conflict is indeed the very mechanism by which reality was created, both its good and its bad. In contrast with the modern idea of a creator individually crafting things, it was a progressive force which created everything in reality by its evolutionary actualization of the laws of existence. What is important to note here is that the destructive force cannot create anything, only hamper and corrupt. It is, in itself, a sort of non-existence, just like the lie from which it derives. So when we understand that everything was created because of the progressive force, we must realize that every little thing, just by the act of existing, is fundamentally good, and was made to be so. In many ways, it may be intrinsically harmful or regressive as well, but this is only because it has not been fully progressed to its perfect state. We all, of course, should set to mind that this is not a uniform or even process, an understanding that even a quick survey of reality would convey. In our modern day, we have an infinitely better understanding of the exact functionings of the material existence in the history of the universe. And what we have discovered thus far is that the universe has evolved and expanded over billions of years, from an infinitely dense point to everything that we see now. This idea is what Zarathustra, along with many later known and unknown Zoroastrian sages, were trying to express regarding the meaning of existence, however limited in scientific knowledge. Moreover, they were trying to say that we are only in the middle of this process, and that the end would be this expansion into ultimate perfection. In fact, throughout this video, I have been using the word progressive for the Avestan word spenta, but this word would more accurately be expanding or increasing. I have used the word progressive as its use in modern English is similar to how spenta is used in Avestan, but it is important to note that this is an outward progression in all directions, an increase, growth, or unfolding of truth in all directions, not a linear progression in one direction. But I digress. Many still, rightly so, would wonder what the nature of Ahura Mazda is. How could anything exist before existence? How could it craft and design, let alone think at all, before reality existed? How was it able to initiate an action before the very material world began? These are the questions typically shushed away by many, but I would attempt to answer these and others too. Whether these next answers were exactly a part of Zarathustra's understanding is hard to say. He at most alludes to some. The work he composed, however, is highly complex, crafted to prompt the reader to search for deeper truth. As such, it can be hard to conclusively detail what he exactly meant by certain things. Yet, one must imagine he taught and explained clearly to his followers his ideas in detail, and that these ideas, however muddied by time, remained. Later tradition tells us that Ahura Mazda, along with a panoply of other spiritual entities, exists in a realm called the Endless Lights. It is said that in the beginning, Ahura Mazda existed purely in the Endless Lights, and that all that truly existed was the Endless Lights and the Void. Yet, it was upon the Endless Lights entering into, or acting on the Void, by which creation began. Sadly, the vast majority of Zoroastrian works were lost in the Muslim invasion, so this story of creation comes from a much later time, missing the intricacies and complexities of earlier Zoroastrian philosophy. Yet, even still that story remained, however muddied. It is this story of creation that gives us a clue to Ahura Mazda's true nature, along with the idea of the fire ever present throughout all of existence. Since its inception, fire has been revered above nearly all else in Zoroastrianism. Even to this day, Zoroastrians are known for their fire temples. This is because fire is seen as a representation of the ultimate energy pervading the universe, as a hand and arbiter of the Creator, Indeed, the very universe is seen as being created in fire, and that same energy of creation still permeates throughout existence, hence the reverence. The very beating heart of the universe is that warmth ever present in reality, in every living animal, every star in the sky, and in the sum collective of the entire universe. In their own way, ancient Zoroastrians were seeking to understand and respect the driving force of reality, and while they lacked the scientific understanding to explain it, these ideas of fire and the endless lights were their way of expressing that they saw an energy which permeated reality, and even preceded it. By the integration of these two ideas, we can reconstruct a pure narrative of creation. In the very beginning, before existence itself, there existed just the endless lights and the void. These endless lights can be better understood as ultimate energy, all the energy that is spread out in our current universe concentrated in a single area, and existing outside material existence. As I mentioned, it is these endless lights where Ahura Mazda existed and exists. In a sense, the Creator can be seen as the supreme intellect and wisdom of this ultimate energy. Their very nature is similar to how, in modern physics, energy doesn't materially exist and can only be measured based on its effects on material objects. It is indeed a fact of modern physics that energy is only the potential for particles to move. Yet we still understand that energy exists in some manner. It is in this manner, however hard to understand, that Ahura Mazda existed in the endless lights before existence itself, and perhaps continues to exist. The act of creation was when these endless lights entered into or acted upon the void, infusing it with the energy which would begin to transform it. It was at this moment, when energy flooded into the lifeless void of the material existence, that truth began to act within reality, governing each and every movement. And from this, those two forces began to slowly transform existence into what it would become, both the good and the bad. And it was by all these that the universe began to evolve. Such was the universe born, and the themes of the ultimate story which first began then now continue to exist, without resolution. It is this reason I felt it was paramount to explain creation. Because we live in an unresolved story, a path of trajectory with a clear endpoint. The ending would make but little sense without its beginning. Yet how exactly would these different forces ultimately resolve? How exactly will it all end? What indeed is in store for reality at the end of time? I hesitate to use the word end because life and existence will continue on in some way. It is instead best to consider it the end of our current existence, or the first existence, to use the Zoroastrian term. It is by this we begin to draw close to the end of our story. This very existence I have described to you in so many ways is referred to as a first existence. This is the existence where good is so separated by bad, perfection so separated by regression. It is the one infested with legacies of falsehood and oppression, where beauty is so often hard to find and harder to hold on to. All we humans have known is this first, or original existence, an existence so hard to understand in many ways. In this existence, the progressive force and the order of existence may bring us so many good and wonderful things, but equally may the lie and the destructive force bring so much pain and suffering as to cloud out the good completely. No one makes it through this life without heart-shattering pain. Yet far too many make it out of this life with hardly any true love or happiness. As such, looking at this world in constant conflict, of evil and benevolence, one may feel that things cannot go on forever. That something has to give, something has to change. In a sense, the world must be reborn. How could things go on otherwise? In the Gathas of Zarathustra, he frequently uses the idea of the cow as a metaphor for earth, existence, or life. He refers to the cow beseeching Ahura Mazda for aid in this harmful world, and often tells the listener to provide a good pasture for the cow, and to be good caretakers and herders of it. These metaphors, in short, are telling the listener that they ought to take care of existence, guide it to what would benefit it, and to provide it with a good existence. Yet Zarathustra also employs the metaphor of the pregnant cow in tandem with this idea. For a while, I didn't understand this exact metaphor, and sought alternate linguistic meanings of the word. Yet one day this metaphor suddenly made sense to me, just like I wonder if it does for you now. We live in an existence with the potential to be made perfect, with laws and forces which are evidently designed to bring it to perfection. If this truly is the case, reality, existence, as it were, would be pregnant. This very universe is heavy with child, so to say, as it has, within itself, a perfect existence embedded. As such, would the first existence give birth to a new existence, one free of the current issues we see now, one where truth has been fully actualized, an existence which is best. This is referred to as the best existence, an existence in which the order of existence has been fully realized, the existence which is wholly good. This is, in some ways, the ultimate idea in Zoroastrianism, the ultimate idea in reality. If we were to look at the history of existence, all the death and destruction, goodness and progression, we could see what all this has been leading to. All the regression in the face of progression, all the creation in the face of destruction. The struggles we face in our individual lives and in the history of humanity are not fundamentally different from the struggles that the universe as a whole has faced in its expansion towards perfection. They are, in fact, all the same, however complex and iterated upon they may be. The goal of existence, reality, is to give birth to the best existence, in a sense. In all these ways, existence is a myriad of different intersecting narratives, paths, and potentials that we humans have been thrust into, with little understanding of what they even are. We often feel as if we are the victims of these barely understood narratives, lamenting to fate or to God as to the incomprehensibility of their intentions. Yet, in spite of our worst inclinations, we have begun to explain these universal narratives to ourselves and others. Searching after the truth, we have begun to understand it in minor and in major ways. We have crafted a myriad of differing belief systems and ways of thinking, which, overlapping upon each other, have educated us on how to make the best sense of this inordinately complex existence. As such, we thinking beings have emerged out of the universe with this very capability, and we have analyzed and understood existence to the best of our abilities. It is this appearance of us which is indeed the very turning point of the universe in which we reside. In the story of us humans, us thinking beings cannot be separated from the ultimate story of existence itself. This world can indeed make little sense to us who must experience it. Yet that has not stopped us, nor will it. We have begun to understand things truly, in our own ways. And as such, we have learned the true nature of reality. We have thus begun to realize that there is but one ultimate prerogative of existence: not to survive, not to benefit oneself, not to procreate, but to grow and to progress. This realization is, in truth, the first step. As we have emerged out of the universe with the ability to think and to direct our actions, we have stepped into an existence stuck in a conflict of expansion and regression, an existence which has the potential to be made perfect. It is at this very turning point, this emergence of humanity, that our goal, our importance is clear. By our actions, by our words, by our thoughts, we could join that progressive force. By understanding the truth, we can endeavor to make the world best. Such a simple phrasing belies the utmost complexity of such a task, which is why I spent most of this video explaining the fraught nature of understanding and actualizing the truth. I want you to understand that it is only by a collective effort of mankind in searching after, systematically detailing the truth, that we can make this existence new. Yet, in spite of how monumental an effort that may be, many of us still try in this current day. In spite of the mixed nature of this first existence, we continually seek to enjoy and improve these lives we live. Despite the seeming meaninglessness or hostile nature of life, do we love each other in that very life? Despite all this, we can let not the lie infiltrate fully our lives. By doing so, can we truly see the wrong for what it is, and we can see, despite all the setbacks, the world is fundamentally good and worth being perfected. This is what we refer to as Frashokereti, the renovation of existence. While many in academia use this term to refer to the final end in Zoroastrianism, this is in actuality a process, not an event. It is the act of making existence new, of creating, actualizing, or materializing the best existence. We who look at this world, we who try our best against a regression in our lives, can learn to love the world and let truth shine light on our minds. And as such can the world finally make sense again, as it did when we were young. Realizing this progressive nature of this world, we can join in this same process, striving not against it. And as such can we begin to start making existence new. It is here that the importance of words and actions follows on from understanding. We are not yet idols unto ourselves. We are all individuals and families, communities, and societies, each with their own areas in need of improvement. We must then discuss the ways we have understood these problems and let these discussions enlighten our own thoughts. From there, can we then take action from this shared understanding? This is the true meaning of the oft-repeated slogan of Zoroastrianism: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Humada Huchta Harwarshta. By these sort of actions would reality be made best. Ultimately, we all must work together to make this world best. We must advance science and technology to new heights, understand deeper, more nuanced fields like philosophy, psychology, and sociology in order to raise the subjective well-being of all humans, thus bringing them true happiness. Such is the inheritance of all mankind to enjoy a wonderful life, for all men and women to be equal, for all people to enjoy life without worry and fear, for life to continually be exciting, adventurous, wholesome, and wonderful. As such can we begin to make this world brilliant, new. As such must we realize and establish the best existence, in whatever ways we are able. In all these ways, I have described the final end in Zoroastrianism, as it were. It is the end because it is the culmination of the fundamental themes of existence. Unlike in my other videos, I decided to highlight the importance of human insight, as true understanding is of such an importance in trying to divine the nature of the best existence. As inevitable as it is, the birth of the best existence, there is no guarantee it will be humans who would experience this. And a survey of our attempts so far shows us actively working against it on this planet. This, I feel, illustrates the importance of not being complacent, as it is only within our efforts that we can harness the progressive nature of the universe within our existence. Humanity, of course, may unconsciously try to, but without understanding the nature of existence properly, we can easily regress existence instead by sticking to false conceptions of how reality works. Such is the importance of true insight, of understanding the order of existence, of understanding truth, as this is where it starts. If we fail to understand it, we instead are deceived by the lie. unconsciously propagating dysfunctional and regressive systems in society, regressing this reality which so desperately needs the care of humans. This indeed is the true nature of existence, an existence ready to give birth to the best existence, an existence so split between truths and lies, enlightenment and deception, good and evil, right and wrong, all existing on a path of progression, however much impeded by regression. Reality may indeed be made new, be reborn, when all these conflicts are resolved. As such is true understanding so important. As such is human action of the utmost importance. And as such must we all aid in making existence new, by the will of Ahura Mazda, who created this existence to be made perfect. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into this video. For this outro, I decided to do something differently and not read off of the script because I kind of wanted you to hear how my voice sounds normally, especially with all the pauses, so I figured I would just put this in at the end. Sorry for taking so long to get this video out. I have not been able to record any audio in my apartment, so I was lucky to have a friend to allow me to record in his apartment, so thanks to him. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do plan on making a sequel in the next few months. Probably writing the script will take me the longest time to come up with those ideas, so expect that soon. It's going to kind of cover the more actionable nature of Frashokereti. So expect that. And thank you for tuning in, and hopefully this video is enjoyable. And as always, Ushta.